This presentation is dedicated to Cerillo Rodriguez, who was born on this day, July 7th, 1934. This is also dedicated to the Rodriguez family of Santiago, DNA, Dominican native ancestry. This is the Hispaniola History Channel, La Historia de Hispaniola, presented by David Rodriguez. Peace to all. This is your brother David Rodriguez with another presentation. Of course, before I start, I'd like to give all praises due to the Most High. Walk in the path of truth, peace, and understanding. And without further ado, let's get into this presentation. DNA, Dominican native ancestry. This is a breakdown of my ancestry on the island of Hispaniola. So going back into the genetics, right here, as you can see, as mentioned earlier, starting with my dad, Cerillo Rodriguez. He's from Salcedo. My grandmother, through my dad's side, Hilada Rodriguez. My grandmother, she is from Moca. And my grandfather, through my dad's side, Lelo Rodriguez, is from Santiago. At the bottom, as you can see, that's my mom, Altagracia Tejera. She is from Bani. This here is a picture of my father, Cerillo Rodriguez. He was born July 7th, 1934 in Salcedo. He comes from a family from Santiago, but he is the son of Lelo and Hilada Rodriguez, a landowner, a businessman. He was loved and respected. He was a pastor, God-fearing man, a family man. Actually built a church in the town of Amina, first Bible-based church actually in that town, and built a shelter right next to it. Just to give you a little background of the town he comes from, Salcedo. For those who don't know, many Dominicans know this. Here's a little information here. It says the Salcedo is the capital city of the Hermanas Maribel province in the Dominican Republic. It is the birthplace of the Dominican heroines, the Maribel sisters, who died in the struggle against the dictator Rafael Trujillo. So these three sisters go down as heroines in the history of the Dominican Republic. And my dad comes from that same town, Salcedo, which is now known as the Hermanas Maribel province. My grandmother, Hilada Rodriguez, she's the mother of Cerillo Rodriguez. Her last name, Rodriguez, she had that name before marriage. She was a Rodriguez from birth, the Rodriguez family of Moca. She was beloved by the entire family. I heard nothing but good stories and great stories about her. A little bit about the town where she's from, Moca. Here it says, Moca is the capital of España province in Cibao region of the Dominican Republic. The city is known as La Vela Heroica, the village of heroes, due to the number of men and women from Moca who have played a major role in the Dominican Republic's history in bringing down two dictators, Ulysses Hirux and Rafael Trujillo, and bringing democracy back to the country. About my grandfather, Lelo Rodriguez, born date unknown. He is from Santiago, father of Cerillo Rodriguez. He was a restaurant owner. All that we know is that he was very dark-skinned. There are no photos. The family members said that he was very dark-skinned and pretty much resembled my father. Like I said, my father, Cerillo Rodriguez from Salcedo, my grandmother from Moca, and my grandfather from Santiago. But the overall Rodriguez family is from the Cerillo. We have family members also from San Francisco de Macorís. So that whole Cibao region is places where distant family are from. But now let's get into the genetics, because this is dealing more with like the 1900s, and oral history kind of matches exactly in terms of what the science says with the DNA markers. So let's move back a little further into history in my timeline. Let's go into the 1800s. Here it says in the last 200 years, your ancestors may have lived in the following locations. From the 1800s and 1850, DNA markers with the Dominican Republic. As we can see here, most of them, the strong ones are in the Santiago region. Over here, they provide some information in terms of common surnames from MyHeritageDNA.com. According to them, the top 5 surnames are Rodriguez, Perez, Fernandez, Martinez, and Hernandez. 1800 to 1850, and as you can see here, the Dominican Republic was formed in 1844. So these markers are showing where my family were on the island at that particular time. DNA markers on the island before the formal government is formed. So now we're going back into the 1700s. This is 1700 to 1750. There is no oral history of us coming from any other place, or in terms of from my dad's side. From my mom's side, she from Bani, we do have stories of her ancestors do coming from Spain, but on my dad's side, we don't really have much stories. From what we know and understand, we were kind of always there. Using Ancestry.com, going a little further back, Ancestry.com gives some pretty interesting information. On the right, where it says Dominicans divided, it says as the 18th century opened, regional differences appeared between the inhabitants of Spanish Hispaniola. In the mountains highlands of the Cibao Valley, a free peasant population pooled their labor to complete difficult tasks such as digging, irrigation trenches, and practice compedrago, or co-parenting, so that the children grew up with an extended kin network. So it seemed like the Cibao Valley in the 1700s had some kind of freedom and independence. It says here free peasant population. That could just mean folks who were not bound by any kind of overseers or slave masters. Further down, reading on, it says here, on the other hand, in the southern regions, residents tried to establish sugar plantations on the coast. Free black overseers, it says free black overseers often ran these operations for absentee Spanish landowners. Portion of the timeline history on the island is known as that time period where the Empire of Spain wasn't really present on the island. It was mostly ran by a group of folks who were independent to maintain an existence for themselves. But it says here, like their northern counterparts, they got global news from passing privateers and pirates, which helped foster a strong oral storytelling tradition. So by the 1700s, this had to have been a hub for information for new arrivals into the Americas. Source, Dominican Republic, A National History, written by Frank Moya Pons. This is dealing with the Cibao Valley during the early 1700s. And by the way, this book is a little expensive and hard to get. I bought it used, and even used, it cost me like $85 or something to that effect. So on the right, it says, according to the leading scholar of Dominican history, in the 1700s, the city of Santiago was independent and thriving, while the city of Santo Domingo struggled due to neglect and lack of trade and resources. Only Santiago, which had apparently 800 households, was in somewhat of a better position, since trade with the French had permitted some residents to obtain the means to build better homes. So the folks in Santiago, the residents in Santiago, had some kind of trade going on with the French. And this had to have been some kind of peaceful coexistence going on here in Santiago. And as we know now, Santo Domingo is the colonial city, but during the 1700s, it appeared that Santiago had more wealth and influence on the island during that time. And now going a little further back, this is dealing with genetics in the 1600s. Genetics 1600s, my DNA markers on the island from the 1600s, 1650. This is according to My Heritage DNA. As you can see, Santiago DNA marker still present during the 1600s. There it is right there. I still have that Bani genetic marker according to My Heritage, and you can see it's broken down as the top ones being from the Dominican Republic, of course, and the next two being from Spain and Italy. let's get into some more information in terms of what are my older genetics according to 23andMe. So here it says David Rodriguez older genetics comes from America, Jewish, North and East African DNA. This is according to 23andMe. So you can see here, so between or around 1710, went back to 1600s, but according to 23andMe, as far back as the 1700s, the oldest genetics in my strand are from the Native American, the Jewish, the Southern East African, and the North African DNA, according to 23andMe. So according to them, the Native American DNA is among the oldest strands of my ancestry. So I have 2% indigenous Haiti and Dominican Republic DNA and 5.4 Native American DNA overall. This was going back into the 16th to 1700s. This is just covering the first half of my DNA results, concentrating on the island of Hispaniola, my native DNA. And to be continued, we will be covering part 2. Stay tuned for that. I appreciate you for listening in, taking in this information. This is your brother David Rodriguez. Thank you and good night. Peace. This is the Hispaniola History Channel, La Historia de Hispaniola, presented by David Rodriguez.